Imagine this, a team of 4 astronauts who embark on a space mission only to be hit by cosmic radiation that alters their DNA, granting them some incredible powers. And just like that, Marvel's first family is born, the Fantastic Four. Sounds like a setup for a legendary superhero film, right? Well, for many, this was their first live-action introduction to these iconic characters, and it didn't really hit. But does it still hold up 20 years later, or is it just another mid-2000s superhero movie? Welcome back to another movie review. Today, we're taking a look at the Fantastic Four 2005 ahead of this year's reboot. This was the film that brought Marvel's original superhero team to the big screen even before the MCU existed. Directed by Tim Story, it follows Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm as they gain extraordinary abilities and face off against their former ally turned villain, Dr. Doom. This movie isn't exactly ranked among the best superhero films, but for a lot of fans, it holds a special place, a fun, if flawed, adaptation of the comics. It's got standout performances, cool visual effects, and that early 2000s superhero movie charm. At the same time, it struggles with a weak villain, uneven writing, and a finale that leaves a lot to be wanted. So, let's break it down, what worked, what didn't, and whether Fantastic Four is worth a rewatch today. At its core, Fantastic Four sticks surprisingly close to the classic comic book origin story. Reed Richards is a brilliant but somewhat awkward scientist who dreams of studying cosmic radiation. He partners with his old rival, Victor Von Doom, to fund a space mission, bringing along his best friends Ben Grimm and the Storm siblings, Sue and Johnny. Of course, things don't go as planned. A cosmic storm hits them mid-mission, altering their DNA and giving them extraordinary powers. Reed becomes Mr. Fantastic, gaining elasticity where he can stretch his body to insane lengths. Sue becomes the Invisible Woman, capable of turning invisible and generating force fields. Johnny becomes the Human Torch, able to control fire and fly. Ben, however, suffers the most extreme transformation, turning into the massive rock-covered powerhouse known as the Thing. While the team struggles to adjust to their new powers and shifting dynamics, Doom, however, who was also exposed to the radiation, starts his own transformation to a power-hungry villain with metallic skin and the ability to manipulate electricity. This leads to the inevitable clash between the Fantastic Four and Victor Von Doom, culminating in the final battle in the streets of New York. Sounds great on paper, right? Well, Fantastic Four gets a lot right, but it also falls short in key areas, especially when it comes to its main antagonist. But if there's one scene that perfectly captures the spirit of the film, it's the bridge rescue sequence. This is the first moment when the Fantastic Four truly come together as a team, showcasing their abilities in front of the public. Ben Grimm, devastated by his transformation, unknowingly causes a major traffic accident. As chaos unfolds, each member of the team instinctively steps up. Reed stretches across to save a firefighter. Sue creates a force field to stop a fire and protect civilians. Johnny catches a falling truck, and Ben's sheer strength saves lives. It's a fantastic showcase of their powers, and it sets up the public's reaction to them. Also, it establishes them as a team in a fun and engaging way. Now that you know the golden moment and our brief review, we're going to talk about my likes and dislikes and if the film is worth watching 20 years later. First, we're going to talk about the Thing's practical design. The decision to use practical effects instead of CGI for the Thing was the right call. Michael Chiklis is Ben Grimm, and his suit gives him a tangible presence that feels authentic, while later versions, Looking at You, Fantastic Four 2015, opted for CGI. This version remains the most iconic live-action take on the character. Well, that is until the reboot comes out, because he looks phenomenal in that trailer. Now, let's talk about Chris Evans as the Human Torch. He's easily the standout performance in this movie. Evans fully embodies Johnny Storm's cocky, reckless, and charismatic personality. Whether he's showing off his flame abilities, antagonizing Ben, or delivering one-liners, he steals almost every scene he's in. This was long before his Captain America days, and it's very clear he was having a blast in this role as well. Now, while we're on the topic of Johnny Storm, let's jump into his CGI. The CGI for the Human Torch's flames still holds up surprisingly well. His fiery form and aerial sequences look great, and the movie nails the visual energy of his powers. And the other characters were awesome, and the effects were cool as well, but they're just not really standouts, so I'm not going to talk about them much here. But I will talk about the team chemistry. Despite some iffy writing at times, the chemistry between the main cast is really natural. The sibling rivalry between Johnny and Sue, Reed and Ben's long-standing friendship, and Johnny constantly annoying Ben, all of it feels genuine and true to the comics. So now that we've talked about the character dynamics and what I personally liked and I thought stood out, we're going to talk about the comics. For better or worse, this movie embraces its comic book roots, from the team's origin story to the personality dynamics. It even stays true to the lighthearted and fun tone that the Fantastic Four are known for, but the character designs aren't necessarily 100% to the comics, like the Thing. Although his design is iconic and awesome looking, he just doesn't look like the comic book Thing. And that's going to wrap up my likes. So now we're going to talk about dislikes, because there was a huge dislike in this movie that I could not get over when watching. It kind of it made me mad, even though this movie's as old as I am. But Dr. Doom, he's a massive letdown. This is easily Fantastic Four's biggest flaw. Doom is one of the greatest villains in Marvel history. He's a genius scientist, a ruthless ruler, and a sorcerer. But here he's reduced to a generic, one-note businessman with electrical powers. There's no sense of the menace that he is, and his motivations feel weak. He's just there, and that's a major problem when he's supposed to be the main antagonist, the main villain, the big bad. And with that said, we're going to talk about the way they defeated him, because after all that build-up, Doom is barely a threat in the final battle. The team takes him down way too quickly, and there's no real sense of danger. It's a disappointing payoff for a villain that should have been so much more. Now that we've talked about the major issue with Doom and the way he's defeated, let's talk about some of the writing and even some of the pacing. Some of the dialogue and the humor don't land, especially between Reed and Sue. Their romance feels a bit forced, and some of the emotional moments don't hit as hard as they should. Now, the pacing. The movie takes a long time to get to the real action. There's a lot of time spent on the team figuring out their powers and dealing with personal struggles, which is fine, but it makes the final confrontation feel rushed, and it's over way too fast. That's going to conclude the minimal spoiler review for the Fantastic Four 2005. But let's talk about why it works overall. At the end of the day, Fantastic Four is not a perfect superhero movie, but it is a fun one. It captures the spirit of the comics, delivers some great performances, especially from Chris Evans as the Human Torch and Michael Chiklis as the Thing, and embraces a lighter and more adventurous tone compared to darker superhero films of that time. However, its weak final villain, rushed final battle, and uneven writing prevent it from being truly great. And if you're a fan of the Fantastic Four, this movie offers nostalgic charm and solid character chemistry, even if it doesn't fully do justice to the potential of Marvel's first family. Does the Fantastic Four hold up today? If you go in expecting a fun, campy superhero movie rather than a masterpiece, I would say yeah. It's still an entertaining watch. It may not be fantastic, but it's certainly far from the worst superhero movie out there. And hey, at least it's not Fantastic Four 2015. Thank you for joining me in today's minimal spoiler review. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and feel free to check out my previous video. I put a lot of work in these videos and I try to improve on each one. So if you can, check it out. It tells the algorithm that my videos are worth watching, and as always, stay curious and let's keep the conversation going.